Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We're now live. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I would begin by introducing the Youth General Assembly. Youth General Assembly is an autonomous assembly that has been formed in order to provide a credible platform that instigates the true sense of policy and strategy making, equitable administration, and non-customary legislative public speaking on social issues by empowering enthusiasm in youth for being the future ambassadors and democrats. The aim is to inculcate the convening and confronting qualities amongst the youth to expand their perspectives and knowledge regarding true democracy and parliamentary politics. Keeping up with its tradition, the Youth General Assembly has organized the sixth session of our annual Beyond the Youth conferences. The aim of the conference is to ensure the role of youth as a driving force behind justice and extending its role in creating a bridge between textual knowledge and practical application to empower the youth of today. It is an absolute pleasure to be collaborating today with Alaf Se Insaniyat, who came up with an amazing initiative of highlighting the impact of COVID-19 on the criminal justice system of our country. We're being joined by an extremely competent, accomplished panel today. I would hand over the floor now to Ifat, who's going to be moderating the session from Alif Insaniyat. Ifat, I welcome you to this platform. You may take on from here. I will just sign off. It is your platform. You can do whatever. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hania. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all doing well. Today we have joining us Advocate Farah Khan. She has been practicing in the field of criminal law for more than 7 years and is also a faculty member at Hamdard Law School for Criminal Law and Criminal Procedural Law. She is currently a special prosecutor for the National Accountability Bureau of Pakistan. Farah is also currently engaged as a senior research associate with the ICRC and is working to bring legislative reforms in Sindh regarding the protection of healthcare workers and improvements in legislation in this area. Hi Farah, how are you doing?
Assalamualaikum. I'm very well. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the invitation.
It is our pleasure. Next, we have Advocate Asia Munir. Asia Munir is one of the leading female advocates at the High Court combating gender-based violence and is a renowned expert at rape and sexual violence. Currently engaged with Siddiqui Rada Usman and Maiman Law Associates and has been affiliated with War Against Rape since 2003 and works with various not-for-profit organizations. She has also assisted the Additional Attorney General in cases pertaining to sexual and gender-based violence at the Supreme Court Karachi Registry. Assalamu alaikum Asia, कैसी हैं आप? Okay. Moving on, I think she'll get back to us. Okay. Moving on, we have Barrister Saif Akbar. Barrister Saif Akbar is an advocate of the High Court and a partner at Akbar Sarki Baloch and Company with more than 8 years of legal practice experience. Barrister Akbar specializes in criminal litigation covering wide array of crimes. He is also a trustee at Care for Health, which provides rehabilitation services and works towards improving mental health. Assalamu alaikum Saif, how are you doing?
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're well, Ifat, and thank you again for having us on this panel today.
No, it is our pleasure. And last but not the least, we have Barrister Aisha Iqbal. She is the founder of Alaf Se Insaniyat, a locally driven not-for-profit organization working towards empowerment of marginalized communities of Pakistan with prime focus on access to justice. She has conducted various literacy in law trainings pertaining to gender disparities and is specifically working towards improving legal awareness in Pakistan. Hello, Barrister Aisha. How are you doing?
Hello, Ifat. Thank you very much. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you all for joining us. Our topic for today is the effect of COVID-19 on the criminal justice system in Pakistan. As COVID-19 continues to escalate, reaching an all-time high of 1.08 million cases in Pakistan, the pandemic has unleashed institutional weaknesses and limitations within which criminal justice system operates. Whether it be criminal courts, the police, the prisons, or even the victims, each of them have been individually subjected to the cruelty of this virus. This is the reason why we are gathered here today to analyze the impact of COVID on each of these institutions and assess their response towards combating the said virus. Okay. Moving on to our first question, which is towards all of you. How have you, in your individual professional experiences, witnessed the effect of this virus on the proceedings of the court? I would like to ask Farah this question. Farah, could you please start and then I'd follow up with everybody else. Farah, mic is muted.
Okay, so you know how every single person and their life have been affected with this pandemic. As a prosecutor, I can share my experience, obviously, and that is when the lockdown was imposed and the provincial government has issued certain SOPs for courts as well, and the Chief Justice of the Sindh High Court was taken in loop for implementations of those SOPs. For good 3-4 months, the courts were restricted to hear cases which were on evidence or not on urgent hearing. And urgent hearing in the legal system mainly means that hearing of bail applications or remand matters and etc. So all of that was put on hold. Now that resulted into conclusions of trial, and we already know that our legal system, especially the criminal justice system, has suffered a lot of delay in terms of conclusion of trial. This pandemic has actually increased or played a vital role in the courts to conclude the trials because the witnesses could not come, people could not travel from different provinces, be it witnesses, be it complainant or the accused persons. So there was a lot of chaos in the courts in terms of conclusions of trial. Then there was this suggestion that कि जो बेल एप्लीकेशंस हैं उनको सुना जाए ताकि जो लोग जेल में हैं उन लोगों को रिलीज़ किया जाए, लेकिन एक रिलक्टेंट कोर्ट्स थी उसको एक्सेप्ट करने में क्योंकि काफ़ी सारे ऑफेंसेस ऐसे थे जिसके ऊपर बेल दी नहीं जा सकती थी. एविडेंस वाज प्रीटी स्ट्रॉन्ग and then people were going back to prison, and there was a wide spread of COVID-19 within the prisons because the custody was not being brought in court because of the SOPs of Sindh government. So as a prosecutor, I felt there is a lot of administrative failures on part of the judiciary and on part of the provincial government who's providing support, infrastructure support to the trial judiciary to make sure that the trials are actually smoothly running. So that is something that I faced in courts on daily basis because for 4 months I can say, because I was doing the same. I used to just go to court, mark my presence, and come back home, within 2 hours. Whereas अगर एक normal situation होती तो we used to work till 3:30 in court. We were doing evidence and everything. So yes, definitely the pandemic has caused a lot of inconvenience in trials, and in trial courts it is important that matters proceed because everything is based on evidence, and evidence is it's time constrained. Sometimes witnesses just stop coming to court and it hampers the case of prosecution. It becomes very difficult for us to convince people who are traveling across the province and coming to just testify in the court. They just refuse to come. They're like, हम अपने पैसे खर्च करके क्यों आए बार बार जब आपने केसेस नहीं चलाने. तो ये जो सारे प्रॉब्लम्स है वो अब उसके साइड इफेक्ट्स जो है वो अब हमें फेस करने पड़ रहे हैं क्योंकि जो पोटेंशियल विटनेसेस थे now they're so fed up with this coming to court, marking their attendance and then leaving for not having anything done in the court. It has impacted on prosecution because now they are facing troubles in conclusions of trial because they don't have evidence or witnesses left. So I think this is one of the setbacks that I personally feel that we have faced.
Right. No, I completely understand. Seth, what about you?
I believe Ms. Farah ने काफी अच्छी तरह sum up कर दिया है जो sort of situation है, which I believe a lot of us have obviously personally felt throughout this pandemic. I mean, obviously, I feel like हम लोग सब are aware of this legal saying or legal maxim or जो है justice delayed is justice denied, which is obviously been going on for a very long time. But the fact is, I think during the pandemic, we had to face it a lot more. Unfortunately, हमारा जो criminal justice system है, उसमें even before the pandemic, there were quite a lot of delays that automatically happened, which we're all aware of in terms of just the copious amounts of cases that are there. Unfortunately, obviously, personally, as Ms. Farah had put it, the delays of the uncertainty that existed. कि अभी हमें पता नहीं if the judges are going to be able to make it, if our witnesses will be able to make it. अगर आपका if you're defending someone in a case, an accused who is in prison, Will he even be able to make it to court or not? Will the police and the jail authorities be able to bring him to court or not? In the same way, आपका victim या witnesses कुछ भी नहीं पता था. यहाँ तक कि high court level पे, if there were bails, there was so much uncertainty and there was so much. We just didn't know what was going to happen, and there were just so many lags and delays, which obviously affects because they can जो cases जिनमें एविडेंस रिकॉर्ड हो सकती है या सुने जा सकते हैं और उनमें डिसीजंस आ सकते हैं वो नहीं आ पा रहे थे. तो जो चीजें जो potentially cases that should have concluded in 2020 or even sooner have prolonged, and वो अभी तक, and I'm sure all of us practicing lawyers जो भी इस conference का हिस्सा है, इस talk का हिस्सा है, will I'm sure sort of understand कि मैं क्या कह रहा हूँ, because हम सब ने फेस किया था. ये नहीं था कि सिर्फ मैं अकेला था या मिस फरा अकेली थी या मिस आयशा या आप. We were all people who had experienced this. So I think on a personal level, we had the delays, and we because it's an unfortunate situation. There's a lot of pressure that gets added on with the amount of delays that keep on happening. Because I think criminal justice system, there's a lot of pressure because a person's freedom is always at line. But then obviously the counter to this is that none of us knew about this, but I mean it's such a novel thing that's happened. किसी को नहीं पता था कि क्या होगा, क्या effects हैं. अभी जाके लोगों को फिर भी समझ आ रहा है. Vaccine has only just come out a while back and stuff. So so the uncertainty in one's legal profession was what was interesting also, and it was a new thing completely for everyone, I guess, even for the judicial system, for the lawyers, for everyone involved, basically. But yeah, the uncertainty is a short form of whatever I've said right now is the uncertainty of it all.
The uncertainty of it all. I think that mostly goes on with all of the cases. It just increased by fundamentally when it came to COVID and the criminal justice system. Okay. Barrister Aisha, would you like to briefly comment on how the prison has suffered through this virus and how have they catered towards it?
Right. I think how Saif and Farah talked about delays affecting criminal justice system. Justice delayed is justice denied. I feel like the prison has also followed the same suit in the sense that when COVID hit the world back in December 2019, Jan 2020, I think everything went on standstill for a while because people were trying to understand what exactly is happening. And I feel like there was this shock phase when no one knew what to do. Our judicial system didn't know what to do. Our police had no idea how they should tackle this. I mean, the government was at loss of policies and strategies. कि हम इस pandemic को कैसे deal करें? So I feel like the same can be applied to the prison authorities who initially had no idea how to tackle this issue because we, like Saif said, we were in a very uncertain phase. Right? किसी को पता नहीं है किस हद तक जा सकता है, कितना deadly है, flu है या flu से ज़्यादा है, etc., etc. So I feel like there was a time when it took a while for the government, the judiciary, even the prison authorities to come up with a policy which could help them manage the crisis somewhat. तब तक तो खैर वो crisis ही नहीं हुआ था. So as far as Pakistani prisons are concerned, they have been severely affected by the pandemic. I think more so than perhaps suspects, accused who are जिनका case अभी चल रहा है, or even the victims of the crimes. Reason being, हमारा तो lockdown अभी start हुआ था. These people have been in lockdown for the longest time. Lockdown was the normal for them since day one. And sadly, it's prisoners and inmates who have constantly been overlooked. I mean, even when the pandemic started, people were concerned about how it's going to affect the general public. Like, I can't go to work, I can't go to school, my kids can't, sit for the exam, we can't go to that shadi or whatever it is. But we never really thought about the fact that how are these, inmates being affected, considering that they're already in a very overcrowded environment. I mean, Pakistan ke jo prisons hain, I would just say that they are notoriously overcrowded. We're operating, some of our prisons are operating at 225% capacity. So we can imagine what all would go in these limited places with, let's say, more than 5,500 people. So if I just take the example of Karachi jail, and then we can talk about it in length later. The central jail for males currently is operating. They have about 5,500 inmates, and the official documentation state the capacity at 2,000. That's almost about 65% more inmates than the facility can hold. And so, building up on that, we can imagine what kind of effect the pandemic would have had on them, because we all know that the main way to deal with this pandemic is social isolation. Prison conditions, especially in Pakistan, give you the ideal way in order to transmit the disease to people around you. So, yeah, that's how the pandemic has contributed.
Thank you so much, each of you. My next question, before I come on to my next question, we know that the crime rate has reached an all-time high after this virus because of the economic disparity that has only grown. How do you think has the police dealt with the court proceedings while simultaneously catering to the increasing crime rates and enforcing the lockdown? Farah, would you like to comment on it?
Okay, I am very critical of how the police operate. So I have actually been commented after the last session by my family that you have to take it easy when you comment on police. But unfortunately, it's really struggling to find some nice words for them. But they are glorified security guards. Unfortunately, they are not law enforcement agencies. They are not doing their job properly. Um, Even when the COVID-19 hit and the lockdown was imposed throughout the country, and the duties were assigned to the police officers to be और the नाकाबंदी के ऊपर या जहाँ पे उन्होंने बैरिकेड्स लगाए हुए हैं वहाँ पे पुलिस वाले खड़े हुए हैं वो लाइनों पे गाड़ियाँ निकाल रहे हैं this and that. This is not their job. This is something that the government could have hired any other private agency to do, because the crime rate was increasing rapidly, obviously because we live in a country where economical situation is so uncertain. People are actually living on daily wages. A large number of the population survive on daily wages, and suddenly there was a lockdown and people were not being able to earn. Obviously, how they are going to feed their families? So the crime rate increased, and since the police was more focused on not letting people go for shopping, they actually forget to do their main job. So that actually caused a lot of chaos. And also, I just want to extend the question that you have asked actually. So it is, the policing system in Pakistan, is very is misunderstood. The responsibility of the police is not only to investigate, it is also to do surveillance, right? So policing, the concept of policing actually includes the concept of surveilling. So in which area there are potential criminals, and they will actually hire people for committing petty offenses in the area, and them who they are. It is your job to stop it, because it comes within the work of surveillance. They fail to do that, right? Their network is based on how to register FIRs, but the network does not work for how to stop the crime before it is committed. So the failure is there, that they don't understand the concept of surveillance. So that is one of the problems that we have in our policing system, that it absolutely fails in intelligence and surveillance. So when we talk about the increased rate of crimes, especially mugging and stealing and robberies and street crimes specifically. So these are the things that they could have actually stopped, but because they just don't want to do their jobs properly, so they fail to do it. Now, if we take this further, if we say that the courts could have proceeded properly if we had a system, we lack so much infrastructure in this country. Have you ever been to a district court? Have you ever seen a court of a magistrate? It's like a cubicle. It's like a box, tiny little box where this poor magistrate is sitting and doing his job, and around him there are 6 people. It's crowded, right? और उन्हीं 6 लोगों के बीच में अगर 2 कस्टडी और एक पुलिस वाला और आ जाए तो ऐसा लगता है कि सब लोग एक दूसरे का पर्सनल स्पेस इन्वेड कर रहे हैं. तो आप ऐसे एनवायरनमेंट में काम कैसे करेंगे जब पेंडेमिक आपको ये कहता है कि यू हैव टू मेंटेन सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग एंड दिस एंड दैट. इट वाज जस्ट इम्पॉसिबल. सेकेंडली, वी डोंट हैव ट्रेनिंग्स. हम लोगों का जो सोशल मंत्रा है वो ये है कि जब मुसीबत आएगी तब देखेंगे, ठीक है, उससे पहले हम कोई काम नहीं करना चाहते. तो हमारी जो लॉ इन्फोर्समेंट एजेंसीज थी, जिनको ये ड्यूटीज़ दिए गए कि जी आपने रोड पे खड़े होकर इंश्योर करना है कि कर्फ्यू लगा रहे, लॉकडाउन लगा रहे, उनको ट्रेनिंग्स नहीं थे प्रॉपरली कि ये काम कैसे करना है. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर मेरी गाड़ी को कोई पुलिस वाला रोकता है और मैं उसको बोलती हूँ कि भाई क्यों रोकी मेरी गाड़ी, और उसको पता ही नहीं है कि क्यों रोकी गई है, उसको सिर्फ ये पता है कि गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से ऑर्डर है कि आपने बाहर नहीं निकलना, कोविड-19 फैला हुआ है. व्हाट इज़ कोविड-19? You know how it is spreading. These basic information they did not know. They did not know that if they are asking people to wear a mask and somebody asks them कि भाई क्यों मास्क पहनना है, so they could not actually advocate to that person कि मास्क पहनना क्यों ज़रूरी है. So ये छोटे छोटे से प्रॉब्लम्स हैं हमारे पुलिसिंग सिस्टम के अंदर कि अगर हम उनको एज एन एग्जाम्पल किसी इलाके के अंदर ये सोच कर लगाते हैं कि जी ये लोगों को समझाएंगे या कुछ लोगों को बताएंगे या डिटरेंस क्रिएट करेंगे लोगों के लिए पॉलिसीज़ पे इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए, तो उनको खुद ही नहीं पता है वो पॉलिसीज़ क्यों लगाई जा रही हैं, उनके दिमागों में खुद ही वो कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर नहीं है. तो हाउ आर दे गोइंग टू कन्विंस द पीपल हु आर कमिंग टू देम एंड आस्किंग देम कि जी हम फलानी जगह पे क्यों नहीं जा सकते. तो ये एक बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है हमारे यहाँ पुलिसिंग के अंदर, दैट we have untrained police officers, we have untrained police staff. They have absolutely no clue why this curfew was placed, why the lockdown was placed, why the people were asked to stay back their homes. It was for them, it was a provincial government order and they had to implement it by hook or by crook. That is it. That is all it was for them. So they could not convince people who were coming to them, the population who does not understand the implications of their coming out of their houses or asking कि हमें काम पे जाना है या जिद करना कि हमें काम पे जाना है, for whatever reason, लिटरेसी रेट के बारे में बात करने या अवेयरनेस के बारे में बात करने, there are so many factors, but they just could not convince those people to stay back at home. So I think that was one of the problems that police had faced, and then the attention was diverted from their main job, which was investigation and prevention of crime. It was diverted कि जी नाकों पे खड़े रहो और ड्यूटियां दो और गाड़ियों को रोको. तो फिर वो जो काम है वो कौन करेगा, इन्वेस्टिगेशन कौन करेगा, क्राइम प्रिवेंशन कौन करेगा. ठीक है, तो ये जो एक ओवर बर्डन हुई है पुलिस इस वजह से, दैट हैज इम्पैक्टेड अ लॉट इन इंक्रीज ऑफ क्राइम.
एंड नॉट ओनली क्राइम्स, लेकिन फिर उसके साथ साथ जितना क्राइम जो है कितनी इन्वेस्टिगेशन की स्लो जाती जा रही है, उतनी कोर्ट प्रोसीडिंग्स भी स्लो हो रही हैं बिकॉज पुलिस इज सो ओवरवर्क्ड. आई एग्री. आसिया, मेरा अगला क्वेश्चन जो है वो आपके लिए है कि आप, एज मेंशन अर्लियर, आप जो है जेंडर एंड सेक्सुअल एंड जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस में काम करती हैं या उनके जो है ना विक्टिम्स के साथ काम करती हैं, विक्टिम्स के लिए काम करती हैं. So can you please comment on how the virus has affected the mental health of the victims who because of the delays would have to come into contact with their abusers more often? जैसे कि अभी हमसे सैफ और फरहान ने बताया था कि डिलेज बहुत होते हैं कोर्ट में, अनसर्टेनिटी बहुत है, तो आई एम ओनली अज्यूमिंग कि विक्टिम्स को भी कोर्ट दोबारा आना पड़ता होगा अपनी टेस्टिमोनीज के लिए, अपनी एविडेंस के लिए, तो उनकी मेंटल हेल्थ पे क्या असर पड़ा है इस वजह से, इस वायरस की वजह से?
अच्छा, हेलो, अस्सलाम वालेकुम. सॉरी, वो मेरे नेट का इशू हो रहा था तो काफ़ी जो है वो पार्टिसिपेंट्स की मैं बात सुन नहीं सकी. फरहा ने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा, मैं इन्हीं को सेकंड भी करूँगी. और ये है कि जिस तरह से अभी बीच में प्रोसीडिंग स्टॉप कर दी गई थी कोर्ट्स के अंदर, लेकिन कि क्राइम वही बढ़ रहा था, वही मतलब जो है मेंटली जिनके केसेस स्टॉप हो गए थे तो वो बार बार फ़ोन करके कि हमारी बच्ची जो है, क्योंकि मेरे पास ज़्यादातर छोटी बच्चियां हैं जिसमें 3.5 साल से और 12-15 साल की बच्चियां हैं, अंडर एज हैं, उनके रेप केसेस, सेक्सुअल वायलेंस, असॉल्ट के केसेस मेरे पास ज़्यादा हैं. तो उसमें जो कि बार बार कॉल करती है कि हमारी बच्ची बड़ी हो रही है, वो हेजिटेट करेगी स्टेटमेंट देने के लिए, और वो अभी से ही जो है कोर्ट का कहेंगे कि कोर्ट में आपको स्टेटमेंट देना है, करना है, तो वो थोड़ा सा शाय हो जाती हैं. तो ये वाले इश्यूज ज़्यादा थे कि फिर उनको काउंसलिंग करके उनको दोबारा से उसी मतलब हम तो नहीं चाहते कि वो बार बार वही चीज़ों को याद करें और मेमोराइज करके जो है वो ज़िंदगी के साथ चलते रहें. हम तो यही कहते हैं कि भाई जल्दी इनका स्टेटमेंट ख़त्म हो और यहाँ पे आगे अपनी नॉर्मल लाइफ की तरफ जो है वो जल्द से जल्द अपनी नॉर्मल लाइफ में जाएं और गुजारें, उसी तरह अपनी सारी एक्टिविटीज़ अडॉप्ट करें. अच्छा, जिस तरह से केसेस की बात है, तो केसेस तो मतलब क्राइम तो रुकता ही नहीं है ना, चाहे वो पेंडेमिक हो, चाहे कोई स्ट्राइक हो, चाहे वो कर्फ्यू हो, कुछ भी हो, लेकिन केसेस जो है वो रुकते नहीं है. इन्हीं दौरान मेरे पास तकरीबन 4 से 5 केसेस आए जिसमें एक गैंग रेप भी था, जो कि स्ट्रिक्ट मतलब कर्फ्यू था और सब था, हर जगह कॉर्नर पर पुलिस भी थी, रेंजर्स भी थी, तब भी एक गैंग रेप था। 5 लड़कों ने, एक शादीशुदा लड़की थी जो कि अपने पेरेंट्स के घर जा रही थी, वहां उसको उसने 2 लड़कों ने उसको बिठाया और मास्क से पहले उसने उसके मुंह पे कपड़ा बांधा, फिर मास्क लगाया और बीच में बिठा के उसको ले गया। मास्क लगाने से भी ये है कि वो कुछ बोल नहीं सकती, कर नहीं सकती थी, क्योंकि ज़ाहिर बात है पेंडेमिक है तो उसमें मास्क लगा हुआ है, किसी को क्या पता कि मास्क के पीछे उसके अंदर कितनी वो मतलब परेशान है या बेचारी है, किस तरह उसको लेके जा रहा है। बहरहाल उसको, उसके साथ उन्होंने 5 लोगों ने ज्यादती की। फिर उसके बाद वो उसे लेके जाने लगे किसी और जगह पर, और उसी दौरान था कि इसने हमें हमारे फेसेस देख लिए हैं और इसे हमें अब जो है ख़त्म करना है। वो सब बातें सुन रही थी। 2 लड़के जो इसे वहाँ इलाके से लेके गए, क्योंकि सन्नाटा था वो, तो उस तरफ कोई देखने वाला नहीं था, उसको ले गए। फिर वापस जब दूसरे 2 लड़के छोड़ने मतलब वो कहीं और लेके जा रहे थे, तो उनको मालूम नहीं था कि ये इसकी इलाका ही है। इसने वहीं चलती हुई बाइक से छलांग लगा दी, जो कि इसका सारा फेस वेस सारा जो है मतलब इंजर्ड हो गया और काफ़ी उसको ज़ख्मी हुई। फिर वो जब छलांग लगा दी तो बाइक वाले तेज़ी से निकल के चले गए और फिर उसको वही पूरा ट्रीटमेंट और वो सारा, तो तब वो थाने भी गई तो रिफ्यूज़ किया गया कि हमारे पास अभी स्टाफ मौजूद नहीं है, आप कल आए, आप परसों आए। तो इस तरह के जो सेक्सुअल वायलेंस के केसेस होते हैं उसमें एविडेंस को बर वक्त कलेक्ट करना बेहद ज़रूरी होता है। तो उसने काफ़ी सफ़र किया। फिर वो जो है एमएलओज़ के ऑफिस मतलब एमएलओज़ के ऑफिस गई। वहाँ पर उसने कहा कि मैंने हाथ पैर जोड़े कि मेरी बच्ची के साथ इतनी तकलीफ हुई है उसको, और उसको ब्लीडिंग है, बहुत मतलब इंजर्ड थी वो लड़की। तब जाके उसको फिर वहाँ के किसी और इलाके पुलिस को बुलाया गया। फिर काफ़ी जो है उसको इंक्वायरी वगैरह की गई, करा, फिर भी 4 दिन उसका डिले हो गया एफआईआर में। बहुत सारे केसेस हुए इस दौरान, छोटी बच्चियों के भी थे, सब थे, लेकिन बहरहाल कहना मकसद ये है कि जो भी सूरत हाल हो, क्राइम रुकता नहीं है, लेकिन उसकी सीरियसनेस को कि सारे तो पुलिस जो है जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन भी थे और ऑपरेशन भी था, सारे जो उनको नाकों पे उनके जो है गली कूचों पे खड़ा कर दिया गया, तो वो अपनी ड्यूटी किस तरह से अंजाम दे। इसी तरह जब मैं जेल में जब मैंने एक ट्रेनिंग करवाई थी, 26 ट्रेनिंग की थी पेंडेमिक के दौरान ही विमेन प्रिजनर्स में भी और जुवेनाइल में भी, तो उनको पता ही नहीं है कि क्या है ये। अगर उनको बताया भी गया है कि अपने आप को जो है वो किस तरह से सेव करना है, किस तरह से आपको मास्क लगाना है, हाइजीनिक का भी बताया गया है, तो वो उस चीज़ को एक्सेप्ट करने को तैयार ही नहीं है। और क्योंकि वहाँ पे ये सब चीज़ों की फैसिलिटीज़ भी नहीं थी, तो उनको चीज़ों का पता ही नहीं था कि ये चीज़ भी मतलब एक वायरस आया हुआ है जिससे हमें बचना भी है और डिस्टेंस रखना है। वो एक ही बेड, चरपाइयाँ लगी हुई थी, चरपाइयों के अंदर के ऊपर वो 6-6 7-7 लोग उसके साथ बैठे हुए थे। फिर मैंने जब उसको जो वहाँ पर सीसीटीवी कैमरेज लगे हुए थे, मैं उनके ऑफिस में, तो मैंने उनको जो है हाईलाइट कराया कि देखिए ये सब चीज़ें यहाँ पर एक ही चरपाई है, उसके ऊपर 10-10 लड़के बैठे हुए हैं और ये चीज़ नहीं होनी चाहिए। फिर इस पर हमने जो है वो सोचा और इनकी ट्रेनिंग वगैरह करवाई और उनको फिर जो चीज़ें थी जो है वो दी गई कि एक सैनिटाइज़र था, अपनी पॉकेट में रख लें। उनके पास एक-एक बॉक्स था मास्क का था। फिर उनको बताया गया कि हाथ धोने हैं आपको और किस-किस तरीके से आपको अपने आप को सेफ रखना है। तो यही बात है कि जब ओवरबर्डन हो जाती है पुलिस या इदारे ओवरबर्डन हो जाते हैं, तो फिर चीज़ें भी पेंडिंग में चली जाती हैं और वो नहीं हो पाती सब चीज़ें, जो करेक्ट टाइम पर होना चाहिए। हेलो?
बिल्कुल फरा, आपकी बात मिसाल से आपकी बात हमने सुनी।
हेलो?
इसी जो आपने अभी प्रेजेंट का हेलो
जी, जी।
जी, आपकी आवाज़ में बिल्कुल सही आ रही है। आसिया, हम नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन के ऊपर मूव करते हैं। जो
जी।
بیرسٹر عائشہ کے لیے کہ جو ابھی انہوں نے بتایا، جو ایشوز بتائے انہوں نے اس کے پرزن کے ایشوز بتائے، تو ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ بہت اب جیسے انہوں نے بتایا کہ پرزن میں فیسلٹیز اویلیبل نہیں ہے.
Sorry.
Miss Asya, it's okay. If you can mute your mic, and then Ifat can move on to the next question. Perfect.
Okay. Moving on to the next question, just Ms. Asya Abhi just told us about the issues that are going on in the prison, how people are not aware, and how they, even if they're like made aware of it, or if they've been told about the virus, they don't care, or they're not provided with the facilities. So, Ms. Aisha, what do you think can be done, or what do you think has been going on within the prisoners? Like you briefly mentioned about it a little earlier as well, but could you speak on it a little more in terms of the facilities available to the prisoners, or how have they been dealing with the virus, or how have they been been aware of the virus?
Right. So first of all, when Ms. Asya was mentioning that there is lack of knowledge amongst the inmates when she conducted her training in the women and juvenile prison, I second that. I was available at the prison last year for a training, and we realized that despite the fact that they're all in confinement and they're in close quarters to each other, the use of mask was not, it felt like it wasn't even made compulsory. Yes, the staff had the mask on, the police officers had the mask on, even the person who was coming in for temporary repairs had the mask on, but the prisoners, they were taking it very lightly. So it was very important for us to remind them during our training that you need to put the mask on. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but then again, they do not have access to social media. They do not have access to all these trainings that we get to see on daily basis. And I think that plays a significant role in their lack of understanding of how serious the pandemic is. That's number one. And I feel like that is also the reason why they don't take it seriously. As far as the availability of masks and sanitizers are concerned, see, the prison falls under the domain of the provincial government. So any resources that are allocated for the prison has to come from the provincial government. However, having said that, there is a lot of international aid that also flows into these prisons. We have UN Women, we have different World Health Organization, and these organizations continue to donate, let's say, sanitizers, masks, PPE kits to not just the prison staff, but also the inmates. And if after that we don't really see the inmates utilizing them, then it raises the question of where is this equipment, where are these resources being diverted to. And that, I feel like, is a very important question to address, because at the end of the day, these inmates, their fate lies at the hands of bureaucrats. I mean, it's their decision. Unke saath wo kya bhi kare, kuch bhi kare, kaise bhi kare. We will never know, because, like I said, they are the most easily forgettable part of the society, unfortunately. So there's that. Apart from, the fact that they're not well aware of the pandemic, I feel like the conditions in the prison are horrifying as well. They're unhygienic, unsanitary conditions. There's lack of access to clean drinking water. I mean, there have been individuals who've given interviews where, it's the same water that they wash with that they have to consume. And that has already led to significant medical conditions. And to add COVID on top of that, it's a recipe for disaster. We've had a couple of deaths within the prisons in Pakistan. The official number is 3. But of course, we unfortunately cannot rely on the statistics provided to us by different authorities, because there is no accountability. We have no way of confirming the numbers. I think the current COVID rate amongst inmates across Pakistan stands somewhere around 3,500. But yet again, these are unconfirmed figures. We don't know if that is the actual number, because if we compare it to the rest of the world, our figures are not very high, the official ones at least. I mean, in certain states within the US, the rate amongst inmates of COVID-19 was triple the amount of the general population. And I know it doesn't make sense, but when you read up on it and you realize, oh, okay, because these figures are correctly being reported. So there is, an issue of we do not have proper figures. Apart from that, like I mentioned earlier, overcrowding. Overcrowding is a big, big, big issue. Choti si jagah hai, aap kaise expect kar sakte hain for people to survive? I mean, there was this interview with one of the prisoners earlier this year, where he said, एक छोटी सी जगह में जहां 3 लोग मुश्किलों से आते हैं, unfortunately in the male prisons वहां पे 16 लोग हैं. And they're like, we can't sleep, we can't sit, we can't, and there's a shower as well installed in that room. So it just, it forces you to think of what kind of conditions these inmates are living in. And again, what are the authorities doing to respond to it? I mean, we've seen ना ही कोई proper legislation हुई हो या कोई directive दिया गया हो inmates के लिए कि इनको कैसे treat किया जाए, या and we've seen unfortunately कि अगर हमारे courts ने भी कोई intervention करने की कोशिश की है, जो कि सिंध हाई कोर्ट ने की थी, इस्लामाबाद हाई कोर्ट ने की थी, that has been met with retaliation by the Supreme Court. Last year March के end में I think it was last week of March when the Islamabad High Court ordered कि certain prisoners जिनकी जो bail पर हैं उनको हम लोग release कर दें, instead of keeping them in an already overcrowded place. But the Supreme Court said that no provincial government has the authority to take such decisions. Neither does any court, the high courts at least. They cannot take this decision on their own, and they quashed whatever the courts had said. So we're back to square one. आपका यही तो मसला पाकिस्तान का है, कानून है, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन नहीं है. सो कानून बना, इमरान खान साहब ने भी कुछ महीने पहले कहा कि जो औरतें हैं, जो एल्डरली प्रिजनर्स हैं, जो आपके बच्चे हैं, जुवेनाइल्स हैं प्रिजन में, आप उनको निकालें, and based on some criticism that we'd received from the international community, but it's been more than 5 months and we're where we started. No implementation whatsoever.
Right. When we talk about COVID-19, we see that courts around the world have adapted towards more technological proceedings of courts. We've seen that US में जो है वो Zoom के ऊपर court proceedings चल रही हैं, and all around the world at least we've seen that because we know that this is something, the virus is not going anywhere. So courts have started to adopt towards a more technological friendly court proceedings. So how has the Pakistani justice system, if at all, responded towards adapting technology? I would like to hear your comments on it, Mr. Saif.
Well, the simple answer is that they haven't. Pakistani courts, unfortunately, have not done much. Aapki baat bilkul sahi hai. Obviously, the comment that you've made, the statement that you've said, pretty much the entire world, because like I think we've all said and understood that this is a very unique and novel situation. Nobody was fully prepared for it, and no one knew how to properly deal with it. But yes, a lot of countries, US and all included, we consider more developed, but even other developing nations like ourselves, जिनकी jurisdictions हमसे मिलती जुलती हैं, say for example, if we were to look at India and stuff as well, वहाँ पे भी through different technological methods they have started using, through which courts became easier कि आप अपने ऑफिस से या घर से बैठ के एक्सेस कर सकते थे, ताकि जो urgent चीजें हैं, urgent काम हैं, not just the criminal law as well, even civil law के हवाले से, a lot of it had moved on to the sort of the cloud that exists now, which is through internet, through Zoom, through Skype, or through whatever media that is there. So I believe in Pakistan, at least we, excuse me, have the have the technology, because अगर आप Supreme Court में देखते हैं, Supreme Court has started using video link. So for example, people in Karachi or elsewhere who can't maybe potentially afford to make a visit to Islamabad हर hearing पे, तो अब video link भी available है, जिसके तहत आप अपने cases while being in the city that you reside in आप कर सकते हैं. So clearly the technology exists, ठीक है, लेकिन अब कोई इसको use नहीं कर रहा है या उसका फायदा नहीं उठा रहे. तो unfortunately पाकिस्तान में हमारे कहीं पे भी high court and lower judiciary में कहीं पे भी इस्तेमाल नहीं किया गया है, which is very unfortunate, because I believe that certain hearings can be done. And अगर आप लोग सबको ही पता होगा कि the international legal community is moving towards a paperless system altogether کہ آپ کے جو بھی pleadings ہیں, آپ کی applications ہیں, آپ کی submissions ہیں, a lot of them are being done online and a lot of them are just being sent to different portals تاکہ the relevant court receives them. So without even wastage of that, so we do need to use technology quite a fair bit. وہی جیسے فار ایگزامپل اگر آپ وٹنسز کا ایگزامینیشن ہوگا یا کراس ہوگا یا ڈفرینٹ اگر آپ کو پریزنٹ کرنا ہے کسی کو فار جوڈیشل میجسٹریٹ اینڈ اکیوزڈ پرسن, the policing system should be such, sorry, the judiciary and technology should be such کہ without leaving the police station, without so much exposure, یہ possible ہونا چاہیے. And the fact is کہ دیکھیں one thing that COVID-19 has done has at least made everyone aware of the fact کہ کبھی بھی کچھ بھی ہو سکتا ہے. So, these sort of policies need to be in place and they need to be able, okay, within literally the shortest possible notice, they should be able to be implemented. So, the emergency response, just to kehte hain, how different things have it, even the judiciary now needs emergency response systems. کہ اگر کوئی چیز نہیں ہو سکتی تو how do we use technology جو پوری دنیا شفٹ ہو رہی ہے جس پہ, that we also as being part of Pakistan, and also I feel like it is also our duty as perhaps the up and coming lawyers or those who have who are in the field and all and kafi saalon se practice kar rahe hain, that we help the judiciary with the modern technologies and they take our sort of opinions as well in terms of what kind of policies in order to go forward taki dekhen, because which I'm sure all my fellow lawyers will agree کہ دیکھیں transparency, impartiality, accountability, coherence, these are the underlying objectives of any court, of any judicial body. So, you have to make sure that even if you're moving to a more technological based system, these things are protected. And اس کے لیے بہت سارے stakeholders ہیں جن کی sort of view and opinion آپ کو چاہیے ہوگا. But yeah, the underlying, again, if I was to just summarize all of that I said, is unfortunately Pakistan may, at least in the lower judiciary and for criminal trials or for, aapki, even jaise Ms. Asya ne bhi kaha tha 164 ke statements hote hain aapke of the victim or confessional statements hote hain. And I understand that they're all basically done face to face with the judicial magistrate, but there need to be now response systems through the internet. We should be able to, and through the use of Zoom and other sort of connecting technology, should be able to move towards such a system. But yeah, if anyone else wants to comment, please.
اسی میں مس آسیہ would you like to add anything کہ اگر آپ کو لگتا ہے کہ ٹیکنالوجی آپ کے جن کیسز کے ساتھ آپ ڈیل کرتی ہیں, کیا ٹیکنالوجی اس وقت کورٹس میں لے کر آنا کس حد تک آپ لوگوں کے لیے آسانی پیدا کر سکتی ہے؟ Miss Asya, are you there? Miss Asya, are you there? Okay, we'll circle back to her. Miss Farah, would you like to comment on this very topic?
I think e-courts, before bringing the concept of e-courts in the judicial system of Pakistan, I think there is a lot of behavioral change that we need to ensure. We need to have more accepting, open judiciary where these ideas are accepted, where these ideas are implemented properly. That is one of the biggest drawbacks that we have in our legal system, that we just don't want to change. I mean, even today in the Supreme Court, the steno takes dictation from the judge on a notepad in the shorthand writing, and then thereafter they sit and type it, and then they go to the judge, and if there are any corrections, it's just time consuming. When the witness is standing in the witness box and his examination is being recorded, the dictations are being given. So you interrupt the witness, you ask one question, the witness stands there, the judge translates that questions into English, and then the steno takes the dictation. So just imagine the wastage of time that we are habitual of, right? Instead of doing everything digital, or instead of having people who are just recording everything, whatever the witness is saying, because a lot of things, the whole concept of witness examination changes when the direct speech turns into an indirect speech, right? The witness says, witness اردو میں کچھ کہتا ہے, جج اس کو انگلش میں ٹرانسلیٹ کر کے پیپر پہ لکھواتا ہے, اس کی پوری اسٹیبلٹی, اس کی پوری اسٹرینتھ ہی چینج ہو جاتی ہے. ٹھیک ہے, ایک لفظ کے چینج ہونے سے اس کا ٹیسٹیمنی کے اوپر بہت بہت برا امپیکٹ آتا ہے. اینڈ ایز اے پروسیکیوٹر آئی نو دیٹ there are certain words, they have a certain amount of intensity involved, and if you change it or if you replace it with a very mellow English word, it becomes a completely different thing, because at the end of the day when you read that paper of the deposition before a judge, it just changes everything, right? That is one of the biggest problem that we have, that we just don't want to change. If you go to the record room in district court, the piles and piles of paper, rotting papers, destroyed files, and it is impossible for you to take out 2 سال پرانا ریکارڈ. آپ کو ریکارڈ روم سے نہیں ملے گا کیونکہ وہ اتنے برے حالات کے اندر وہاں پہ پڑا ہوا ہے. تو یہ ای کورٹس پاکستان میں لے کر آنے سے پہلے آئی تھنک یہاں پر ایک بیہیویئرل چینج کی ضرورت ہے. We need to we really have to encourage this psychology in our working system. We have to have people who are more accommodating, especially the judges, and the stakeholders have to think about it. I'm not sure, but I've heard پشاور کے اندر ای کورٹس کا جو ہے سسٹم امپلیمنٹ کرنے کی کافی کوشش کی جا رہی ہے. What I've heard is it is a pretty successful structure that they have in Peshawar, but I don't know how accurate this information is. And we have examples. We can take examples from India. India has implemented e-court system, and every nation with time they try to progress. They try to come out of old conventional methods of evidence recording, but we just don't want to do it. So before establishing those e-courts, we really have to have this change of behavior. And as somebody who comes from this generation, or as somebody who's understand technology, it's easy for me to say कि हाँ ठीक है, let's start doing the e-court system. But what about lawyers who are practicing from last 50 years and they don't know how to use a laptop? And there are lawyers like that. They don't know how to type. They don't know what is Microsoft Word. And they are very successful lawyers, but they don't know the technology because they never find the need to learn it, right? How are they going to adjust to that system? These are the things that the system needs to answer. I think this is time that our bar and our judiciary start making these decisions and take people in loop, and all the stakeholders, the provincial government, the provincial bar association, and the provincial high court to sit and come up with a solution that this delay in the conclusion of trial badly affects not only the people who are in jail and not being living in such an inhuman circumstances, but also people who are searching for justice, people who are coming from interior on each and every date, the complainant and the victim, and not being able to attend the hearings, or the trial is not concluding. That impacts to their mental peace, right? ایک complainant ہے, غریب لوگ ہیں, ان کا ہر دن آنا, it's very difficult, but they're still coming on each and every hearing, so it is an additional expense that they have to bear. Not only the cost of a lawyer, but this is an additional expense that they have to bear. اسی طریقے سے جو کسٹڈیز آتی ہیں کورٹ میں, وہ جس کنڈیشن کے اندر آتی ہیں, سارا دن وہ بیچارے دھوپ میں ایک ہتکڑی کے اندر بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں, رسی باندھ کر ان کو بٹھایا ہوا ہے جسٹ لائک اینیملس, اور وہ ادھر ہی بیچارے اپنی فیملی سے مل رہے ہیں. ان کی فیملی پورے سندھ سے ٹریول کر کے ان سے ملنے کے لیے ایک ڈیٹ کے اوپر آ رہی ہے. This is sad that people just don't want to talk about these situations. It's heartbreaking that we don't see the pain of these people, the disrespect, that in human circumstances they're still coming to court and waiting for a verdict. All of this needs a behavioral change, and we need to think about it کہ اگر ای کورٹس کا سسٹم ان چیزوں کو اسموتھ کر سکتا ہے یا اس پورے پروسیس کو اسپیڈ اپ کر سکتا ہے. آئی تھنک اٹ از ہائی ٹائم دیٹ وی شوڈ اسٹارٹ ٹاکنگ اباؤٹ اٹ. ٹیکنالوجی has played such vital role in every field. I think it is time for us, the judiciary and the legal fraternity, to actually take advantage of these portals and these programs where we can actually speed up the whole process.
Ifat, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry about that. All right. Moving on, Mr. Saif and Miss Farah told us a little bit about technology and how and why is it not possible, or what are the lackings, or how are we not able to incorporate this into our systems. Ms. Aisha, I have a question for you. How do you think the prisons can incorporate technology into their system and help with the ongoing pandemic?
So I think if I'm just to build up on what Farah and Saif said previously, our country is very, very different than other developed nations who have digitalization in their courtrooms, who have e-records, and who can even actually conduct entire trials on Zoom. I mean, take Canada for an example. Also, Switzerland recently, actually, you see, the pandemic has highlighted and identified the weaknesses everywhere, not just in the prison system, also in the judicial system, in the system of civil cases में, family law में, हर जगह पर COVID ने मसले मसाइल highlight किए हैं, and has actually given us the opportunity to deal with it. So I think prison is very similar to that. So I think Pakistani prisons, criminal justice system में अगर हमारे पास online courts या online mechanisms नहीं है, तो I think prison में काफी time लगेगा before they can incorporate the same, because mainly lack of resources, and number two, it's not really a priority on anyone's plate. It's the sad reality, unfortunately. However, if we are to draw comparisons, I mean, जब COVID start हुआ था, back in when it was, the government started imposing lockdowns and restrictions, back in March 2020, जो prison authorities थी, they stopped family visitation as well as transmission. So no one from the outside could actually come in and meet the inmates, whether it was in the women and juvenile center or in the male prison. And I'm just giving the example of Karachi for now. So I feel like they did that, and because that also included the visits from the lawyer. And this is based on what the prison officials have informed us. And, these were part of their protective measures that they took to curb the virus. Now, if you look at the US में चले family visits इन्होंने ban कर दी थी कुछ अरसे के लिए, but they still provided access to lawyers via Zoom. So they asked the inmates to come into the holding room where they would sit down, set up the computer, walk out of the court, walk out of the room, to let the prisoners and the inmates talk to their lawyers, because that is how you maintain access to justice. So that is something that we eventually, God forbid there's another pandemic anytime soon. I mean, we're already so exhausted with this one, but we need to prepare ourselves for the possibility that this could happen in the future. And technology is the way forward. Without it, I mean, I highly believe that I highly doubt that the criminal justice or the civil justice system could survive.
Ms. Farah, based on your current and past experiences, can you comment on how the decision of the prosecution and the pre-trial detentions of the accused has catered to this novel virus? Are there any changes in how you go about cases as compared to before?
I'm sorry, Ifat, your voice broke in between. Can you repeat the question?
Sure, for sure. Based on your current and past experiences, can you comment on how the decision of the prosecution and pre-trial of the accused has catered to this virus? And are there any changes on how you bring about the cases as compared to before?
You see, we don't have a pre-trial stage in Pakistan. We don't recognize it in our system. The criminal legal system in Pakistan, from the very beginning, when the FIR is registered and investigation starts, a judicial magistrate is always in the loop, and he is being told about whatever the investigation is being conducted, and what is the current position in the investigation. But we don't have pre-trial determination process whether we have prosecutable evidence against the person or not. We just present the challan, and the challan evidently either goes for trial or it is rejected by the judicial magistrate based on his own judicial wisdom. So that is one of the problems that we have, that the prosecutor does not have the power to actually determine whether we have a prosecutable case or not. Secondly, our prosecution system somehow feels that every single person should go to jail and should stay in jail till the trial is concluded. Unfortunately, this is the mindset. The legal notion is not based on principles and procedures, it is based on vengeance. So if the person is behind the bar, every single person who's party in the trial, be it prosecutor, be it the investigating officer, their lives are relaxed because the person is in jail. As soon as the person comes out of the jail, the accused, and he's on bail, everybody starts feeling that pressure, and they think that, oh, they might have lost the case because the person has finally released on bail. They just don't understand the concept that it's a completely different process, right? Trial and bail are two different things. They're working simultaneously, but they have different consequences. So what the prosecutors or the investigating officers try to do, they try to delay the process of bail, which impacts on the prosecution's case, because if the case does not proceed further, if the evidence is not being recorded, the accused earns a mandatory right of grant of bail. Now, like I said before, that the one of the most important roles that police do not play in our legal system is the surveillance. If somebody gets released on bail, one of the biggest apprehension of a prosecution is that now he's going to uh, affect the evidence, or he will go approach the witnesses, and this will somehow impact on the result of the trial, and that happens very frequently. We have in our system, हमारे पास politically motivated cases होते हैं, हमारे पास family दुश्मनी के cases होते हैं, जिसमें victim जब accused bail से बाहर आ जाता है तो evidence manipulation शुरू हो जाती है, witnesses resign कर जाते हैं, witnesses hostile हो जाते हैं, witnesses नहीं मिलते, सामने नहीं आते, documentary evidence गुम जाता है. तो ये सारे factors भी इसी legal system के अंदर हैं, जिसकी वजह से प्रोसिक्यूशन एजेंसीज बहुत घबराती हैं इस बात से कि अक्यूज को अगर बेल मिल गई तो उनका ट्रायल, उनका जो केस है वो खराब हो जाएगा ट्रायल के ऊपर, बिकॉज द पुलिस इज नॉट प्लेइंग द रोल, द पुलिस इज नॉट प्लेइंग द मैंडेटरी पार्ट ऑफ सर्वेलेंस, राइट? सो दैट इज वन ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम. सो when the pandemic hits, like आयशा ने शुरू में मेंशन किया था, इस्लामाबाद हाई कोर्ट ने एक ऑर्डर पास किया कि जिन लोगों के केसेस 7 साल से कम की उम्र की सजाएं उनको मैंडेटरी बेल पे रिलीज कर दें ताकि जेलें ओवर क्राउड ना हो. उसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ऑब्जर्वेशंस आए कि वी कांट डू दिस बिकॉज इट इज गोइंग टू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ इम्पैक्ट, बिकॉज कंप्लेनेंट्स को नई लूप में लिया गया या विक्टिम को नई लूप में लिया गया, तो ये अनजस्टिफाइड है, जो भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट का विजडम था उस टाइम के ऊपर, एंड दैट ऑर्डर वाज क्वश्ड. But when they quashed that order, with that order, I think it would have been better if Supreme Court have given some guidelines to the prosecution कि आप cases scrutinize कर दें. भाई आपके पास witness नहीं है, witness available नहीं है, let the prosecution make a statement कि जी हम ये 15-16 cases हैं, इसके अंदर हमारे पास prosecutable evidence नहीं है, let the witness be let the accused be discharged from the trial, right? We have these things available in CRPC. As a prosecutor can actually go to the judge and say कि हमारे पास अभी evidence available नहीं है, इसको डिस्चार्ज कर दे, जब एविडेंस होगा तो इसको कॉल कर लेंगे अक्यूज को दोबारा से, ठीक. बट हम उन चीज़ों को इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं करना चाहते बिकॉज everyone is not playing their role properly. Administratively, every body has to perform their given significant role in order to make sure that the system works properly. So that is one of the main issues. And as far as the production of witnesses production of accused were concerned, ट्रायल के टाइम पे तो एसओपीज ये आ गई थी प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से कि कोई भी कस्टडी जेल से कोर्ट में नहीं आएगी. सो देयर वाज अ कंप्लीट लॉकडाउन, नोबडी कुड एक्चुअली कम आउट ऑफ द जेल, ठीक है. आपके घर वाले मिलने के लिए जेल नहीं जा सकते थे फॉर गुड 3-4 months, एंड यू कांट कम आउट ऑफ द जेल. सो यू वर इन द प्रिजन, यू वर लॉक्ड डाउन, एंड द होल प्रोविंस वाज अंडर अ लॉकडाउन. सो दैट वाज वन ऑफ द इशू के कस्टडी जब कोर्ट में नहीं आ रही तो केसेस नहीं प्रोसीड हो रहे. फिर जिन लोगों को पुलिस अरेस्ट कर रही थी, आप उनको बगैर टेस्ट के, बगैर ऑब्वियसली उस टाइम पे तो वैक्सीनेशन था भी नहीं, मेडिकल चेकअप के बगैर आप एक बंदे को उठाकर, एक नए बंदे को उठाकर आप उस प्रिजन के अंदर वापस डाल रहे हैं जो ऑलरेडी काफ़ी क्राउडेड है. तो ये अरेस्ट तो हो रहे थे, क्राइम्स भी हो रहे थे, रिमांड भी लिए जा रहे थे, ये सारे काम साथ साथ चल रहे थे, मगर एक प्रोसेस को आखिर तक पहुंचाने का कोई जरिया नहीं था. अगर बेल्स लग भी रही हैं तो वकीलों के लिए ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का इशू था, लॉयर्स का कोर्ट पहुंचना मसला था, प्रोसिक्यूटर्स का कोर्ट पहुंचना मसला था. There was a lot of issue regarding judicial magistrate. A lot of judges got contracted COVID in the first wave because of the overcrowding, because of the very tiny spaces that they were working in. Their staff got COVID-19. So, these were the things that judiciary has faced in the very initial days when they didn't realize that they have to go for a lockdown. सो प्रोसिक्यूशन के लिए जो सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम होता है वो ये होता है कि अगर कस्टडी मौजूद नहीं है तो केस नहीं चलेगा. अच्छा, अब उसके लिए प्रोविजंस मौजूद हैं कि जो वकील हैं وہ certain applications لگاتے ہیں اور ان certain applications کے ساتھ کہ آرڈر کے اوپر ایگزامپٹ ہو جاتا ہے اور کیس چلتا ہے. مگر اگین اب لائر بھی نہیں ہے, ملزم بھی نہیں ہے, تو کیس چلائے گا کون, ایویڈنس کون سنے گا کس کے اگینسٹ میں ایویڈنس آ رہی ہے. سو یہ سارے پرابلم تھے. اس کے علاوہ وٹنسز, ہمارا جو لیگل سسٹم ہے وہ آکولر ٹیسٹیمنی کے اوپر بہت بیس کرتا ہے. ابھی ایون ایف اگر کوئی ڈاکیومنٹ بھی ریکارڈ پہ لے کر آنا ہے تو اس کے لیے بھی آپ کو وٹنس لے کر آنا پڑے گا جو وہ ڈاکیومنٹ ایگزیبٹ کرائے گا. اب اگر وہ وٹنس اویلیبل نہیں ہے یا وہ ٹریول نہیں کر سکتا فار اینی ریزن, یا because of the transportation inconvenience he could not come up before the court, then the matter gets delayed. So these were the problems a prosecution has faced at that time. And then I can give you like 7 to 8 examples where the people expired, and it was quite scary for me to be there in the court and getting applications every day कि falana witness he passed away because of COVID, or the accused passed away because of COVID. So it was getting very um, overwhelming for me to handle, because the court I was handling, a lot of people died during that 1 year because of COVID-19. I got COVID while working in the court. I've examined a witness. He was COVID positive. He told me after the examination that I am COVID positive while coughing on the documents that I was holding in my hand. And 2 days back, I got tested COVID positive. So, I am one of the victims of this overcrowding as well. But at the same time, we all have such heavy duty, morally and professionally, and we are actually working for a lot of people every day, and it is our job to ensure that the trials are not delayed. But sometimes these things just go out of hand, and we look towards the provincial government to provide infrastructural support to us. But it's a very sad situation that Sindh government at so many levels they failed to provide that. So yeah, it did impact on the prosecution, and it did impact on the pre-trial proceedings.
Right.
initially.
All right. Thank you so much for bringing this insight to us, Ms. Farah. I'm sure without speaking to you, a lot of us, a lot of our viewers would not be aware of what is going on in the courts. And Mr. Saif, your experience, Ms. Farah, yours, it has truly brought a lot of insights into what is actually going on and how our justice system is dealing with, or not dealing with, perhaps, the pandemic. With that being said, I would like to thank all of you for being here. I'm sure you all were very busy, and considering it's a week, it's a holiday, thank you so much for giving us time, for giving us your precious time. I think that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Ifat, for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Aisha, who is joining us here from Canada, and I'm sure it's midnight, or I don't know what the time there is right now, but I'm sure it's late. Thank you so much, everybody.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Farah, Saif. It was wonderful being on the panel with you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Okay. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.